Welcome to the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show, where we explore nighttime dreams, daytime desires, and the best ways to transform the tragic into magic. Because let's face it, we all dream, we all have our blessings, and we all have our challenges, myself included. And I don't want any of us to take any of those things lying down, if you know what I mean. I just wrote a book entitled A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. I'm excited to explore the topic with you, whether it relates to your waking or sleeping dreams, because we're dreaming all the time, people. So let's make it the best dream possible. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Welcome to the show today. I am so excited to share with you my amazing guest. I feel like she and I are just meeting, but I have such a deep soul connection with Tiffany Lazic. She's an author of multiple books, which we're gonna talk about in just a moment. But I want to, because we've got so much to share with you today, I feel almost like we need to really, really get centered. So let me just invite everybody to turn within for a brief moment. Let's just close our eyes and just center in. Let our feet touch the ground if we can. And let's just let go of any of the worry, hurry, scurry, flurry from the outer world. And let's just let it all go. So we can drop all the way in like the deepest roots of the deepest, biggest, tallest tree. Let's just be those roots so that we can grow tall during this time together, so that we can call in all the wisdom, and we can just give so much thanks in advance for Tiffany Lazic for joining us all the way from Wales. And let's just give thanks for our willingness to be here, and with open hearts, with open minds, open souls, and open spirits to become all that we are capable of being, and having a shift, having an awakening, being taught and remembering a way to be able to shift the tragic into magic in perhaps a new way. So thank you. So it is. Amen. A woman. A Tiffany.
Thank you for having
me. Thank you for joining me. So let me just tell y'all about this amazing woman, Tiffany Lazic. She is a spiritual psychotherapist with nearly 20 years of experience in transpersonal psychology. She trained at the Transformational Arts College of Spiritual and Holistic Training, where she also teaches. Tiffany is a sought-after international presenter and the owner of the Hive and Grove Center for Holistic Wellness, with a private therapy practice offering individual, couples, and group therapy. She's also developed highly regarded self-development programs. Her website is Hive, like beehive, Hive, and A-N-D, Grove.ca, hiveandgrove.ca. And her book that we'll be talking about today is The Noble Art. So we'll talk about that. But first, I just want to say, Tiffany, you and I were scheduled to do this interview quite a while ago, and that was during a time when I was taking a little bit of a break from what I was doing, and so I said, well, let's just put a pin in it and we'll reconvene at some point in the future. And I kind of decided to start taking, even though my show is very dream centric, I've been going down kind of this other rabbit hole called Tragic to Magic that's kind of related to my book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. And you reached out to me and you sent me an email that really, 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 really imprinted me, really touched my heart. And you said that you know something about transforming tragic into magic, going through something incredibly tragic recently,
Mhm.
and here you are. So,
Mhm.
would you be willing to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. It's interesting because I think in truth we were scheduled to talk almost exactly a year ago. I think it was like April. So it's been a
Oh,
year, a year.
wow.
And and in that time as well, sort of after that time where, I was in transition moving from Canada to Wales. And so my healing center, which I had for 12 years, is now virtual.
Thank
So,
God we
perhaps
could
I
do
should
that.
tweak some of the info, but
Yeah.
and and so, I think even in that, there had been sort of an intention that we would reconnect, because uprooting everything from, the place that has been your country for your entire life, as much as there's a call for the soul, and there was a soul call. Long been a soul call to this land.
Mhm.
And what I thought was really interesting is, before I connected in, I thought, well, I will just turn to a deck that I really, really love to work with,
Mm.
called the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle, just to get.
You're cute. Oh, you're so cute.
It's literally like right beside me. And I'm like, okay, so let's just get some focus on there's so much to talk about, there's so much to share, there's so many pieces. So what exactly is going to be my focus? What is the nudge? And the card that I pulled was Dream Sanctuary. The thing that struck me, because I love attend to the simple things. And the thing that I love is the little quote that is at the beginning of each of the write-ups about it. And this quote is about meeting a woman along a walk. And they said, hello, ask her where she's going. And she replied, Redu I im un barod. She replied in Welsh.
Oh my God. That's
Even saying
amazing.
that, I got the
How did you even know how to say that? You're the only person I've ever talked to that's actually said that. Everyone else says blah, 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 blah. And what does it mean?
and it means I'm already here. And that is, so I had a call to this land, and there were things that kept me from coming to this land. And then there was a crisis that happened in my life that made me realize that there are times when you need to step into the thing, which is the thing that is calling you. And it was a crisis that I had around my son in at the beginning of COVID in March of 2020. And that was even before the noble art came out. It had been in roots for a long time. Made me realize, okay, this is the time. If this is something that I've been wanting to do my whole life, this is the time to do it. So it took 2 years to put everything in place. And in that time, there was a lot of my son went through his own crisis and reached out to me, and I, gave him a hand to help him out of that. He was rebuilding a lot of pieces that had fractured for him, and we were just developing this really, really beautiful bridge in our relationship, which really cemented when my husband and I landed here, his stepfather. So we moved here in June, and I think I had the most beautiful conversations and the strongest relationship that I'd had with my son. He's 24, in years. And then in September, he took his life. And this is the first time I'm talking about it.
Thank you, Tiffany.
It was just a couple of weeks ago, really. That was the 6-month anniversary of his death. And there's so many things. There's so many things around that. One of the main, not one of the main things, one of the things out of so many main things, part of what prompted the great work, my first book to come out, in truth, was the death of my mom.
Oh,
And she passed away in 2008. One of the last things that she ever said was, I have lived a good life. I have no regrets, and I know that I am loved. And I remember thinking, there is nothing greater that one can ask for at the end of a life. And yet, and my mom and I, of course, I mean, my mother, myself, that book, we went through our struggles. And again, found the place to weave a beautiful, beautiful relationship. I loved her so much. I mean, I always did, and loved her, and had a strong relationship with her. And I felt she was my strength. She was my strength. And then she died. And I was like, I have no strength. And it was one of those moments, certainly in the work that I was doing as a spiritual psychotherapist, where I went through a crisis. It was a crisis of faith, because it was all of a sudden I thought, do I actually believe what I teach? Like, do I actually believe what I hold space to guide people through? Because if I don't, then I can't do this work anymore. And a lot of it had to do with, what is my relationship with spirit? What do I actually believe happens to our souls? What do I actually believe relationship looks like when our loved ones die? And so it took me about a year I realized early on that that's what I was struggling with. And in truth, the opening of my healing center solely at the feet of my mother, solely at the feet. Because I remember getting dressed one morning, like, I was, you're going around, getting the sweater here, getting the earrings there. And I smelled her perfume. I just kept smelling her perfume, and it was like following me everywhere.
wow.
Finally, literally, I dropped to my knees and I was like, what?
Spell it out, lady.
And I felt a little kiss on my forehead. And she said, it's time to do your own work. It's time to, because I was working in Toronto. I was working about an hour away from where I lived. And it's like, it is time to bring this home. So after that, it was 3 years later, we lost my dad. And there was a whole thing in there as well. I do remember, I mean, I had a very good relationship with my dad. I loved my dad. but I was very close with my mom, right? It was like mom and I did things together. Dad was there.
Right. Yeah, I get
And
that.
I remember actively with when my mom died, I thought, oh, okay, now I have an opportunity to have a really close relationship with my dad. I thought, absolutely not, because I am not going through this pain again. The pain of losing mom, I will not go through this again.
Oh.
And then I thought, which I think so many know, but that pain is a reflection of the depths of the love. And who wouldn't want that?
Mm.
So I did spend the next 3 years really deepening my relationship with my dad. You know what's funny now that I think about it? One of the last things that I did with dad
Mm.
was the last thing that we did for my birthday. He took me and my son to go see the Shakespeare play, The Tempest,
Oh, wow.
at Stratford with Christopher Plummer. Oh, it was amazing. It was
Oh,
amazing. And being there with my dad and my son, who would have been 14 at the time, I guess. But you know what's so funny that I just thought? And this is how it works. I just ordered a bunch of fountain pen inks because I'm a little bit of a fountain pen aficionado. Um, and the one that
not
arrived
surprised.
today was called The Tempest.
Oh, come on.
I
Oh, oh, come on. Oh, that is,
know.
wow,
I know.
wow. Oh,
There's
honey.
so many things, right? And I think that this is where this tragic to magic comes in, because there is
Yeah.
something about the tragic that cracks you open, and the cracking open can feel like it destroys you, but it also actually it can take the scales off your eyes so that you can see that spirit is there. I remember saying with mom that having my mom by my side always felt like I had so much courage, because I could just step out and there was always a net. Like she was always there. And then when she died, it was like, where's the net? Like, and then I realized it's all net,
Oh,
right?
oh, it's always been all net.
It's
Oh,
always been all net.
oh, honey. Oh my God.
So
Oh,
I feel like saying, are you okay?
yeah, I am so okay. You're just cracking me for some people are gonna watch this and some people are just listening, but if you're listening, just know I'm just I'm just a weeping mess over here, but in the best way. I'm cracked open. That's the new crack.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
This is what we're
So,
always after is this edge right here. So
yeah.
I'm right where I want to be. I'm so grateful, so in love with this conversation and your vulnerability and your honesty. It is everything I crave. It is my
Mm,
drug. It's the drug that
mhm.
doesn't leave me dry.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. It
So
it
keep
is
going.
that, um, yeah, just so many threads. There's some things that happen. So I brought up what happened with my mom because, it's so interesting, especially when you talk about the dark nights of the soul. And I think there can be this perception of, okay, yes, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's like, yeah, well, it'll come around again.
Not every t-shirt. There's a few
Not
other
every t-shirt. Yeah,
styles. Few
yeah,
other
there may be a
little
couple.
variations. A
And
closet full of them.
And so there was that. So what happened? So I said, I lost my mom. I lost my dad. Mom was 2008. Dad was 2011. And then in 2017, there were some things that happened. Two things happened. My son, and it's such a common, familiar tale, that he struggled as a teenager. I think especially, he didn't have a relationship with his biological father. His biological father is still struggling. He had a really good relationship with his stepfather. But there was an encounter that happened with his biological father that started to interfere with that. So then he was kind of lost at the time when it's like, teenagerhood and high school. And then he got into drugs, and so he tried to pull himself out and kind of slid back in and tried to pull himself out. So in 2017, there was one of those moments. My brother is 14 years older than me, almost 13 and a half years older than me. And he had gone through his own health crisis 3 years earlier. He had been diagnosed with cancer. It was like devastating, serious. He'd gone through a number of tests and did more tests, and they lost the tests. He went through more tests. It was like a whole 3-month process. And all I know is that everybody I knew was praying. Everybody was praying. And on Easter weekend, I got a call from my brother, and he's like, the tests have come back again. This was right before the first book came out, which came out in May. Because Easter, he phoned and he said, the test came back. I'm cancer free. There's no cancer.
Oh my God.
I said, Hugh, what happened? What do you think happened? And he said, I think it was a miracle. And I said, I think it was too. And he flew out because he lived out in BC. He lived in Kelowna. He flew out, and he was there for the launch of my book with the rest of the family. And it was very, very lovely. And then 2017, the cancer came back. And this time was in September. I mean, it had been a whole process, but by September, two things happened. On the one day, I got a call from Connor, who I had not seen. He had disappeared. I hadn't seen him for months, and I got a call from him. He was in another city. He was in crisis. He needed help. And I was like, we're there. We got him. We brought him back. We brought him back into the house. And the next day, I got a call from my sister-in-law saying, your brother is not leaving the hospital. So I said to my husband, have you got Connor? He said, yes. That I'm going out to Kelowna to be with my brother. And I remember being with my brother. He did not, I got out there a day before he died. He did not regain consciousness. But he and his daughter, so my niece, who is his adult daughter, we spent that last night in vigil with him, just trying to keep him comfortable. And I remember it was the 23rd of September, and I was calling my parents. I was saying, you've got to come and get him. You've got to come and get him. You've got to come and get him. And I had my hands on him. My niece was taking a nap, and she woke up and she was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just calling mom and dad. And she said, can I help? I said, of course. I'd been doing it for like an hour, but the second that she put her hands on him, I felt the energy move, and he opened his eyes. And I was like, yeah, And she just went right up to his eyes and she was just like, I love you. You're a great dad. It's okay. You can go. And I went up to his head and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing this, right?
Uh-huh.
And then now I know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's when I was calling mom and dad even more. And these two ravens flew to the window.
Oh.
And I remember thinking, why is he still here? And then I just bent down and I whispered about his wife. I said, we have her. Don't worry. We have her. And he didn't take another breath. And the two birds flew off.
Whoa.
So the thing about that was that was September 23rd of 2017. And I remember flying back from Kelowna, knowing that there was a whole thing that I was going to be walking into with my son.
Mm-hmm.
And having all that trepidation, do I have the strength? And it was just this thought I had, right? Because I looked out the plane window, I looked down at the clouds, and I saw a triple rainbow. A
What?
triple. So because we were above the clouds, there's no horizon. So the rainbow was a full circle,
Oh my
a
God.
full circle on the clouds. And there
What?
were three of them.
Oh, like concentric circles within
Yes.
each other. Oh my God.
Somewhere.
I've
I
never
took a
heard of such a
picture.
thing.
Like it's never seen anything like that.
The three of them. Oh.
And I looked at them and I thought, right, God doesn't just live in Kelowna.
Oh.
If that was spirit in action, then I'm going home to spirit in action, even though it may not feel the same, right? So there was a whole thing that happened. I mean, that was 2017. And my son went like this. And ultimately, there was, so the last conversation I had with my son was the 15th of September. I knew that there were things that were going on. I was asking him all the questions that one
Like,
asks. Are you doing drugs? Are you reaching out to your psychiatrist? Are you safe with yourself? All of the things. I was also planning to fly out. I had a flight to go back on the 28th of September because I was going to see some family. I was going to help him out, make sure that everything was okay. He was going to be coming here to Wales in December. So I was going to make sure that his passport was all, where it needed to be, all of that sort of stuff. So he was like, yep, I am okay. There was some stuff that was going on. I knew that there was mental health issues that were happening, but we were tracking it.
mhm.
My sister, who lived close by, she went to see him on, the next day, on the Thursday. And because of some weird thing that happened with her car and locking keys in, which didn't make any sense, but she ended up spending 3 hours with him, having a really great conversation. She said they prayed together because that's her mode of
Mm.
love is, and it was really lovely. And then none of us could reach him. None of us could reach him. And by the Thursday, which was the 22nd of September,
Mm.
I was like, I realize he's an adult person. And, I wouldn't talk to my mom sometimes for a month, but it did not feel right. It
Mm.
didn't feel right. I contacted his landlord, who said, we're actually a little concerned because we haven't heard him for days. So I called my sister and she drove out to see him. As I was waiting to hear,
Mm.
my husband called me. I was in the living room and he was like, "You come here. What is that? What is that in the backyard?" And it was a raven.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, that's my brother. He's come to tell me something. So that was probably about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was 5 hours later that I got the call. And the thing is that what's interesting, with all of these weaves, I got the call from my son in 2017, and then the call about my brother the very next day. And we learned about Connor's passing on the 22nd of September, and the 5th anniversary of Hugh's death was the next day.
Oh my God.
So there was something even in that, as
Mm-hmm.
devastating as it was, that made me realize that I was like, okay, they've got him. They've got him. We're destroyed here, but he's okay. And so, I mean, so the next part of the journey was how to sort of bridge that. I did have a sense that because I don't know that anybody, let me say this.
Mm.
I don't believe my son took his life out of despair. I believe he made a choice, that he recognized that he wanted peace and he couldn't get it there. But there's still
Mm.
energy around leaving this world in that way. So the next 3 weeks when my husband and I were in Canada was about how to honor that life, but also how to kind of bridge to make sure his soul was okay, like his spirit really was at peace. And there is so much around that too.
Like what?
So part of it, oh gosh, when I was still in Canada, 2 weeks before I was packing everything up, like they were coming with the van and picking up everything, and I was getting on a plane, I really had to take a course to learn Indian head massage. And everything about that is like, you are
What?
whack, like, where is this even coming
What
from?
is
Like, no, I
right?
had to take this course. I had to take this course. There was a woman that I knew. I didn't know her very well, but I knew that she taught it. She hadn't taught it in years because of COVID. It was like coming up 2 weeks before we moved. To his credit, when I said to my husband, I had to take this weekend long course 2 weeks before we're leaving the country to move to another country, he's like, okay, do what you need to do.
Oh, God bless him. Oh, love that man.
There's so
Yeah,
much. God bless him.
yeah.
So I took it with a friend of mine. It was just the two of us. The woman who was teaching us, she had just graduated as a funeral director. And so although I was learning Indian head massage, when we were like taking breaks and having lunch, there was so much, because I was also really, after the noble art, I really started to delve into, really my work has been psychopomps,
Mm.
how to be a hand from one realm to another. How do you traverse the darkness of the dark night of the soul? How do you be a light to someone going through that? So, the great work takes you through the whole cycle of the year, right? And the
Yeah,
noble art takes you through all of that on a different level. But I've
yeah,
really been honing in on that bardo state of cycle 8, right? That in
yeah.
between. And that is death, right? Moving from life to death is, how do we traverse that? But
Right.
as a psychotherapist, this is the work we do.
Yeah.
People come to us in the dark and they are trying to find the light, and the space held as the work of a psychotherapist is that liminal place where people are learning how to let go of what no longer serves, the heaviness that holds them down, so that they can step back into their light. It is a death
Absolutely.
to the old, and a rebirth into the truth of themselves. So that was the work I was doing. And so talking with her from a funeral director perspective, and psychopomps and all of that. So the first call that I made, not call, but text that I sent when my husband and I, so we were on a plane the next day coming back to Canada. We had a stopover in Munich, and I was messaging my friend saying, I never thought that this would be the way that I would be reaching out to you, but I need a shroud for my son. Because one part of the
Oh,
work that she does is
whoa.
making shrouds.
Oh,
And so that was Friday. She had the shroud made Sunday. And that night, was it Sunday night? Sunday night or Monday night? I can't remember which night. I gathered with my friends. I put a call out on Facebook. I said, this is what we are doing for Connor. Anybody who wants to have a message that he will be wrapped in. We held a ritual, and me and three of my heart sisters, we wrote all the messages all over the shroud, so that he was wrapped in all of these messages of love.
did you write them on the fabric? Did you
We
write them on?
did,
Oh, wow. Wow,
on
wow,
the fabric in Sharpie
wow.
pens, so that on the inside, so still from the outside, it
Mm-hmm.
just looked like this beautiful sort of natural muslin, but on the inside were
Oh,
multicolored pictures and symbols and messages. And that's what carried him. That's what carried his body through transition. So those are the sorts of things that, it's like,
oh.
it made no sense for me to take a weekend long course 2 weeks before we moved. But this is part of, I think, that the tragic to magic is
Mm-hmm.
if something is nudging your heart, it may not make any sense whatsoever. It needs to
Oh,
be done,
yeah.
because you don't know, right?
Wow, Tiffany, keep
So,
going. Thank
so,
you so much. I'm just riveted. I'm hanging on your every word.
oh, part of this too is that I realized, like, this was uncharted territory. Um, and so it felt like we were moving through, I can talk psychopomps, but then when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in the dark, like, how do I get through this? And again, so much of it was like, I think I told you with doing the obituary that, the funeral home was great, and they gave me a template, and they're like, I know it's really hard to write it, but here are some things you can say. And I'm like, I can't write this. I can't write it like this. It starts, um,
Hmm.
where our hearts say goodbye to so and so. I can't even remember how the beginning of the template survived by, and I was like, he survived by everybody. He's 24 years old. He
Right.
survived by everybody.
Yeah.
I can't write this. And so I just started by saying, and I said, it's an impossible thing to write this. And that's what started it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is, again, the tragic to magic is, even in the impossible thing that I'm being asked to do, how do I find the energy or the strength or the light to do that impossible thing in the way that is true to my heart? And I can't do that. I mean, it's helpful to have other people say, oh, do it this way, and here's a template. And that's helpful.
Right.
But sometimes it's helpful in recognizing that, yes, not that.
Exactly. There's value in the not that. That's underrated, actually. The not
Yeah.
that is meaningful.
Yeah.
It helps to clarify.
Yeah.
Oh,
So out of that then, and I love again this woman that she was just so good at, yep, absolutely. Because I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to refuse to print this obituary. And she was like, no, this is absolutely perfect. Because I also did talk about what was so hard about the way he died, and so then when we were talking about his celebration of life, which again, like you're still reeling from, like, I can't even believe this is the reality that I'm living in. And now I'm trying to plan this thing. And not least of the fact that I didn't have any stuff because all my stuff was still in storage. I had no photographs. I mean, I did, thank goodness for like iCloud, right?
yes, thank God.
but
Right.
but and so I was able to put together the celebration of life. But even saying like, well, what flowers do you want? It's like, because again, we're leaving. I don't know where these things are going to go. So I said, I want pumpkins. I had this beautiful picture of Connor, always like of him as this little guy, and we'd gone to a pumpkin patch, and he was like carrying this
Oh,
big pumpkin. I was like, I want 24 pumpkins. I want a
oh,
pumpkin for every year of his life. And so a
oh,
friend of mine took me to a pumpkin patch, and we got all these
oh,
different sizes of pumpkins. And then I saw this massive white pumpkin. And I was like, and that's the 25th pumpkin because that's his spirit pumpkin. And so we had these pumpkins all over the place, with again Sharpie pens, and invited people to write messages or memories. And the thing that amazed me, because again I just put it on Facebook, just how do you communicate these things? At one point I looked around and I was like, I don't know all these people. There were a bunch of young adults there. I had no idea who they were. And they were kids when that Connor had gone to high school with, and that he hadn't seen in 6, 7, 8 years. And I had it as I did talk a little bit, and then I had an open mic, which again, a bit risky, but I'm like, I sometimes you just have to step out onto that tightrope, right? And just whatever it is, it's going to be what it is. And it was so beautiful because person after person came up, people I didn't know. And they told all these stories about Connor that I didn't know. And I can't tell you how many of them said, oh, I remember when Connor invited us over to his house. I'm like, well, I don't remember that.
where
When
was
were you?
I?
When
Ah,
were you?
he's got some splaining to do.
But so many of them said, I had just come to the school, I didn't know anybody, and he just took me under his wing. Like, he had such a big heart. So many messages that I got of, Connor changed my life. Connor introduced me to, community. Connor, was so kind. And there is a whole thing in that too, that I see that sometimes there are these people who have such big hearts. And Connor was homeless for a time. And I remember like just come back. And he was like, but I don't want to leave them. These are good people. I don't want to leave them. And I kept saying to him, but you can't help them in it. You have to
Mm,
be out of it to help
mm.
them. So after that, at the end of the celebration of life that night, the staff said, so what do you want us to do with the pumpkins? We can take them, donate them, or whatever. And I'm like, no, I want to go on a pumpkin journey. Because we were still there for about another 10 days. So we took all 25 pumpkins, 24 pumpkins. And over the next days, we spent 3 days in Toronto. I laid pumpkins at all the places that were like, he was born he was a home birth. We went to the house in Toronto where he was born, and
Mm.
I remembered, and I put the pumpkin on the porch. And then we were driving to the place, I'll never forget this. We were driving to the place where I used to walk with him all the time when he was a baby. And we were passing the movie theater where I took him to see his very first movie was the Tigger movie. And then I took him
Oh.
with his little friend Ivan to go see Spider-Man, and they dressed up in their Spider-Man pajamas, but I did not realize that that is not a children's movie. It was pretty scary. So at one point, these two little like 3-year-olds were like, what? And I covered them with my coat, and I'm like, okay, let's go. So I was telling my husband that story as we're driving past the movie theater to go to the place where I used to walk with him all the time. And we parked the car, and I got out of the car, and I grabbed the pumpkin that I was going to put at the beach. And I looked up, and there was a mom walking with her little kid, and he was wearing Spider-Man
Oh
pajamas.
my God. Oh my God.
I
Oh,
cannot even tell you how many things like that were happening. There were
oh,
so many things like that were happening. And that's the thing too, which is, I mean, none of this was planned. It just evolved. Like, right, this is what we need to do next. This is what we need to do next. This is what we need to do next. And each step, like there's a place in Toronto, Castleloma, that I used to take Connor, like Toronto's castle. And I remember when he was maybe 2 years old, and I took him. It was winter. We had our coats in the coat room, and we went out into the main hallway, and Connor went running up to a wall, and he said, "Where's door?" I'm like, "There's no door. It's a wall." He's like, "Where's the door? Where's the door?" And I mean, it's like, was this a past life thing? Blah, 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 blah. And I went along, nick, nack, 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 and then dug, dug, dug. And it was like, oh, like it was hollow behind.
what?
Yeah. So, anyways, Casaloma was another place where we went to lay a pumpkin because it was so again, there was snuck a
My
little
God.
pumpkin in there into a pumpkin display. So Connor was there. And then we
Wow.
went through because my husband had never been to Casaloma. We walk in, and I look right beside where the coat room used to be. There was a door opening to a restaurant. It's like, there's a door at the
Wow.
wall where Connor had said, "Where's the door?" Which then I was like, maybe this was always going to be. Maybe it wasn't a past life thing.
Oh.
Maybe it was like a future memory
Oh
thing,
my God.
right?
Oh. And even the wordplay, adore, to
Yeah.
adore. Mm. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So there's so many things like that, which makes for a
Ah,
very odd week because it is I can't even describe how heart-wrenching. I think that's the other thing too, when I say, like, I lost my mom, I lost my dad, I
yeah.
lost my brother.
Hmm.
None of them come close to losing your child. It is like having
Mm.
your foundation like just ripped
Shattered.
right
Right.
out. And yet at the same moment, to just keep having these messages, I just felt like, I'm okay, mom. I'm okay, mom.
Oh my
I'm
God.
okay, mom.
Tiffany. Oh my God. I don't want to stop you. I want to keep going for
Oh.
hours. I want every
The
single,
morsels.
I want every pumpkin. I guess I just want to reflect in here that this is, I mean, I'm envisioning you on this edge, like this very tender edge, and just like living from grace. I mean, this is this is how to live, like to be in the, I don't know what kind of flowers. Oh, let's get pumpkins. Let's and let's get 24 of them. Oh, look at that. What? Let's get the 25th one because that's it. Like every moment is like a, oh, and then we'll go, what are we going to do with the pumpkins? Oh, we'll go on a pumpkin journey. Like this is, we don't have a plan for how to do life. I think when we're not in such a heightened state of shatteredness, where the I'm just all choked up, where the veneer, the facade of control that we normally think we have is just gone in those
Right.
moments. So it's not, it's like what, so the fact that it's gone is actually a blessing because it's like the way you're describing this very delicate weave, it just feels like a woman walking through life without any facade, without anything that doesn't matter clogging up the space or taking up residence. It's like nothing else matters but what's happening now, and what
Right.
is this communication, and what are these signs, and what are these synchronicities, and what to do now. I mean, this is, it's it's I wish that we, I mean, I feel like you are just this wise woman. I'm talking to someone right now who, and this has been now a couple years, and I feel like and I don't know you, like I don't have a history with you in this life, although I feel like my soul does.
Mhm.
But I imagine, what I'm imagining is that you were already this way, but this is just Connor's passing has just made you more so. And you have always been a way shower and a light and a guide. But now with Connor's passing, you are now even more so because
Mm.
here you are as a testament to how we live through the unthinkable.
Mhm.
There's that song in the Hamilton musical, The Unimaginable. I don't know if you've heard that song, but it's about, it's after he loses his wife, and it's the most
Mhm.
touching song. He's living through the unimaginable.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, and
Yeah.
this is, it's like, how do you do the unthinkable, the unimaginable? You don't know until each moment guides you. And one of the stories I share in my book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste, is after Tendril died, a baby I was adopting. So I didn't know her. I didn't have the history, but I
Oh.
have two profound weeks with this child.
Mm.
And it was the shattering of all shatterings.
Yeah.
And it was the unthinkable. Like it was just all, I was asking the very same questions. Do these spiritual tools that I teach, do they hold up? And
Right.
some of them didn't.
Yeah.
A lot of them were kind of like, well, there they go. I'll put them in a, I'm not going to throw them away, but I'm putting them in a bucket that I may look at some point. Who knows? But it was the beginning of some new tools that I hadn't known I was going to need. But what we need does come to us. And just like what you've shared, there was radical moments of surrender followed by radical moments of unthinkable beauty and synchronicities that I didn't see coming. I couldn't have predicted. I couldn't have planned, that were just undeniable signs. And even now, her name was Tendril, is Tendril. And it's springtime here, and there are so many tendrils growing everywhere, just great. And so I'm just surrounded by tendril.
Right.
And I, there's, I mean, the synchronicities are just innumerable. And it's, this book is the first time I've told that story publicly, so it's still fresh
Right.
for me,
Yeah.
and I feel so honored to get to meet you in this place, and to bear witness to this first time sharing this in a public
Yeah,
way like this. And I just know that these stories, like we need these like oxygen.
we do.
We need to hear this and to know, because there's such a stigma about
Yeah,
what happens when someone takes their life. Like there's so many erroneous judgments and projections. And what would you say to somebody who maybe is dealing with something like this, who's stuck in their place of grief, even more so because of their beliefs around this? What would you say to them if you could?
yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways that it can show up. And I one of the things that I remember is this wasn't the first time that Connor came close to the edge. I mean, this time he
Right.
did step over it, but there was another time when I intervened and I had him hospitalized, and even a year after that, when we were again rebuilding, and we had this really, really long conversation. He was telling me so much about what his experience was, and really the dark that he had gone into. And I remember saying to him, um, you told me that if I had not intervened at that time, you would have taken your life. And he said, yes, but it was mine to take. And I know that he didn't totally pan out on that, because after that conversation, he had a friend of his who attempted, and
Mm.
Connor intervened. And I remember
Mm.
going to the hospital to visit that friend with Connor. And I said, you
Mm.
saved his life. And Connor said, I know I did. And I said, the thing that made you make the call was the same thing that made me make the call. And I think there is something in, I don't know. I mean, I certainly, when I went through training and we were sort of taught that, suicide it's an angry action. And I don't know that I believe that
Yeah, of
anymore. I
course.
think maybe it can, but
It
not
can be.
always.
Right.
I do feel like, so one of the things in the noble art,
Yes. Yes.
there's
This
a,
beautiful book. Oh my
oh,
goodness. Oh my goodness. Let's all talk about the book for a moment,
what?
please. It's so magnificent. Everybody's got to run out and get it. Oh my God. And the great work as
And the
well. Her
great
books
work.
are
Well,
so gorgeous.
it's,
Oh,
thank you.
beautiful, inside out, luscious, creative works, seasonal, ritual,
Yeah.
ceremony that comes from that deep, deep, deep well. And it's so actionable and
And that's,
thoughtful. Yes. So what you were saying
yeah,
about the
because
noble art.
I want to be able to, like, are these the tools that work? And I use them.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
use them.
Yeah.
So I will say that when right after the great work came out, probably a couple of weeks after, I remember so my dad, okay, so years ago, I went to Greece with my parents. My dad took me to the grave of Nikos Kazantzakis, which is in Crete, who wrote Last Temptation of Christ, Zorba
Oh,
the
wow.
Greek. The epitaph on his grave, which is all about how to live with spirit, right? That's his
Mm,
books are all about that.
mm.
His grave says, I hope for nothing, I fear nothing, I am free.
Oh, I hope for nothing. I, I, I fear
Fear
for nothing. I
nothing,
fear nothing. I
I
am
am
free.
free. Or sometimes it's,
Ooh.
I want nothing, I fear nothing, I am free. And there is this, it's not resignation, it's fullness. It's like, I'm not attached to the past. I'm not attached to the future. I am fully present, and I am
Right.
free, fully present.
Right.
So after the great work came out, and I was like,
Mm.
yay, done, never doing that again, never.
Famous last author words. Yeah. By the way, this is all being recorded so it can be transcribed, so it can be your next great work. P.S.
So I had this nickel, and I remember saying to Connor one morning, I'm like, oh, Connor, there's another book. And all I know about it right now is it is going to be guided by I want nothing, I fear nothing, I am free.
Oh,
That's all I know right now. So that was 2015.
oh,
But weirdly, again, not weirdly, but so again, Connor going through his journey, there was a time when he, again, was homeless, disconnected from us. And I just remember him sort of showing up at the Hive one day and just needing to communicate some stuff. And his shirt kind of fell open. And I was like, what's that over his heart? I'm like, what's that? He's like, I got a tattoo. I'm like, what tattoo? That's what he got tattooed over his heart in the Greek.
oh, oh my God. Oh, oh, that is so beautiful. Those are such beautiful words to I don't want this conversation to ever end on a parallel plane. We'll keep going, but let's put it over all of our hearts, just like Connor did. I hope for nothing. I fear nothing. I am free.
Right.
Ah, Tiffany Lazic, you are a sister of my soul, and I am so grateful that we're doing this. I'm so grateful for you and for your courage and your beautiful and gentle and powerful way that you are walking through the unimaginable and
Mm,
shining such a bright light for all of us, and then leaving big breadcrumbs behind in the form of these big, beautiful books, ways for us to be able to perceive the seasons of life and the seasons within ourselves and the rituals and the depth of spirit and soul and psyche. And you are an angel. And I will never see ravens in quite the same way. And pumpkins, I will never see them in quite the same way. And you're just a healing salve. And I really adore you. I mean, we've got the last words. I hope for nothing, I fear for nothing, I am free. But
I
I'm
am
going to give you the
free.
last words before we conclude. Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion?
Well, I think in truth, it really, if I can come back to your words, which is attend to the simple things, because I think that is, in all of this, I think I live fairly authentically, but there's a lot of static. And I have to say, the losing Connor, like, just clarified, oh, right, I now
Mm,
know what's important.
mm,
And it is the simple things. So coming to this land, I had hoped that he would be healed by this land, but instead we have been healed by this land. We came back to this land, we were enveloped by this land. And when things go like this, it is attend to the simple things. I stop everything and I step out the door and I go to the beach, or I go to the dunes, or I go to an ancient site, sit on a mound, sit on a hill. Just, I'm wearing a snail, like, slow down
mm, mm.
and attend to the simple things. So I do
Oh,
believe that that is what life is about.
amen, sister. Tiffany Lassick, thank you so much for joining me today. And I know we all are enriched in the place where it counts the most, even if it means I need to redo all my makeup. It's
I know.
okay, so worth it. Hiveandgrove.ca is Tiffany's website. Please check out her books, The Noble Art and The Great Work, and you will love them both. You will be enriched by them. So run, don't walk, but walk slowly and run slowly.
And attend to the simple things.
Attend to the simple things. Thank you, Tiffany Lazic. Please be in touch. Let's do this again very soon, and maybe I'll come to see you in Wales.
In Wales. Oh,
I'm planning on it. Just know I've already sent it out there. So I'm gonna see you soon.
Oh,
okay,
beautiful.
big hugs, my sweet sister. I
Thank
love
you.
you. Thank you so much. Mwah. Sweet dreams. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show. If you enjoyed this episode, take a moment to like, subscribe, comment, and share it with your friends. My show can be found on Apple iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to order my new book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste, go to your favorite online or brick and mortar retailer, then head on over to kellysullivanwalden.com tragic2magic. Input your order number and redeem your bonus gifts. I'm also excited to be offering a DreamWork practitioner training. So if that calls to you, go to kellysullivanwalden.com/DreamWork. If you'd like to join me for the live recording of these shows, most Wednesdays at noon Pacific, you can find me on Facebook at Kelly Sullivan Walden Dreams. If you have a question about your dreams or about how to transform your tragic into magic, email me at kelly@kellysullivanwalden.com. Until next time, remember, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And as you awaken to the power of your dreams, you make the world a lighter, brighter, more beautiful place, one dream at a time. Sweet dreams.